Welcome to a brand new episode of Gadget Nation with me, Adam Carruthers. Now we're here at Lin's Furniture in Bangsar. Now that's in Malaysia, obviously. We're also going to head over to Korea. Well, not really. We have a product which is from a Korean brand, Samsung. But we are heading over to Japan. For what, you might ask? You'll have to stay tuned to find out for that. Plus, how we can help to inspire you to do something innovative, to be creative. That's all on today's show. Cameras have certainly come a long way, haven't they? I am very excited about this. One of the latest offerings from Samsung, the NX20. It has a whole host of really nifty features to really make this stand up amongst the crowd. What crowd, do you ask? Well, if you've seen the show before, you may remember one of the favorite cameras that I've reviewed on the show had to be the Fujifilm X Pro one. That was a really awesome camera. And this one duly stands up to it for many reasons. Why? Let's jump in. Well, let's jump in. Firstly, in case you're wondering about the lens which we're using right here, this is the one that comes with it. It is interchangeable, I might add. It is, of course, the 1855, but never mind that. Let's focus more about what the camera has to offer as opposed to the lens, because you can always change that aspect of the camera. Now, firstly, everything for me has been laid out really easy to use. As you can see here, very basic, but very effective at the same time. There's a fine difference between the two. I really have to stress that. You have everything you need right there. And one really nifty thing, which you may not notice upon looking at it first, is Wi-Fi. Yep, this camera has got built-in Wi-Fi, which means you can then upload your pictures onto SkyDrive. I find that an incredibly useful feature, especially if you're going overseas. If you can get access to Wi-Fi, say at a hotel, and you're paying for it, well, free up some space on your memory card instead of taking a few memory cards and upload them and let others see it straight away and have it backed up in the cloud, as they like to say. Such a cool sound. But what else about it? As you can see right here, the buttons not only at the top, but by the screen itself are also very easy, very functional, very easy to use. And it's incredibly easy to actually scroll through all of the options once you want to get what you want. You can also use the focus ring and so forth to do so. ISO is what I'm talking about, etc. The screen, it's very nice, as you can see right there, very clear. Let me just put it on for you so you can really appreciate it as best as you can through a TV screen, that is. Very nice, very easy to use interface, but the screen, this AMOLED, clear AMOLED screen, really is very sharp. Samsung borrowing, I think, from their phones to really make sure this is one of the best screens that I've actually played around with in terms of the camera market. I love looking at that, nice and bright, just makes it a real breeze to use. Other cool functional parts of it, the eye function button on the lens itself just makes it even easier to use, and obviously right next to it you can see switching between manual focus and autofocus. But what about underneath the hood? Woo, that's nice. 20.3 megapixel sensor, that's the APS-C one, so obviously picture quality is really nice. In low light conditions, this can churn out some pretty nifty pictures as well. Fast moving pictures like sport, when you're running, etc. 1/8000 S shutter speed, that's obviously going to allow you to catch all those running moments pretty well. So in that aspect, it certainly functions very well. This lens does tie in very nicely with the camera, it really has to be said. Really does justice to it. Although I know I said I wouldn't really compare the lens because you can always change it. Pricing though is another issue. You're basically paying a lot for this very clear AMOLED screen borrowed from the phones like I mentioned earlier on. So it's not the cheapest one out there, but at the same time, you're really paying for the quality of it. So in that aspect, I am a very big fan. One thing I'm not a fan of is when you look through here, obviously there should be an eye sensor, so it will turn the screen off. But it's a bit sluggish in terms of switching between the two when it detects your eye and when it detects when your eye isn't there. So a slight letdown in that aspect. Perhaps it could be fixed by a firmware update, I'm not sure. So what do I think about this in closing? Well, as a whole package, including the lens, I think it's great. It's awesome. Like I mentioned, having the eye function button there makes it really easy on the lens itself. I haven't even mentioned the video recording. There's of course a dedicated video button which allows you to shoot very, very easily. Very easy to switch between what settings you want. Now that's key because this effectively is bridging the gap. The camera itself is bridging the gap between compact and an SLR. And to do so, well, you really need to make sure that the settings are easy to change, and it's certainly done a very, very good job at doing so. Thumbs up to that. At the same time, if you want to get more technical, you can as well. So that should appease the more professional, more experienced camera users out there. The screen, I keep going on about it because that's why you're paying so much for it, because it really is rather smashing, very crisp, very clear. So obviously a huge selling point in that aspect, as you can see right there. I mean, I could go on and on, but you need to see it for yourself in real life more than anything else. And of course, it's adjustable for when you're shooting. The function layout, it's great. All the buttons, it just adds the whole element of making sure that it's easy to use by spacing everything out. It's great for people that are more professional or want something easy to carry around, but it's also great for people that are more beginners and want to learn a little bit more. So there's a good bridge right there via this camera. Therefore, it gets a solid 4.5 out of 5 for me. Being let down a bit by the price, which is about, well, 3,500 ringgit, slightly less than that, give or take. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but it's quite well worth it. Do you use something like Pinterest or Instagram? Well, I know I do. There's a lot of apps out there which people use on an almost daily basis. In fact, I know I use mine daily. So obviously there are people making money off those apps. Oh yes, indeed, I can guarantee you that. So now everybody wants to build their own apps and be very, very innovative, but it's not that easy. It probably helped if we had our own Silicon Valley in a way. So we've actually managed to sit down with the CEO of Plus8 Star. Now he wrote an article in TechCrunch, the 6 necessary categories to build the next Silicon Valley. Pay very close attention. This could very well inspire you.
So I've been interested in tech ecosystems pretty much since I moved to Asia about 12 years ago. So I lived across Japan, South Korea, China, and more recently Malaysia, Singapore. And I spent a lot of time in the US. And I found that a lot of people had interest in what was going on there. And there was a number of articles written about those ecosystems. But very little was done in terms of making it easy to compare them. So I thought providing a kind of framework that would make it easier to compare markets would be useful so that people have a better understanding of where things stand, and also provide some view for any country to or any city to score themselves and see what it is that is missing and what they could do to make it better. So after I wrote the article, I got a lot of comments actually on TechCrunch. A lot of people contacted me, and they were asking me, "Oh, you didn't score India, you didn't score Russia, you didn't score Israel." So I told them, "Look, I don't know those markets, but maybe you do. So if you know those markets and you know US enough, then you can make comparisons and you can score your market." So India, for example, theoretically has access to a large market, and so is Russia. But they have a lot of problems with infrastructure, they have a lot of problems with regulations, they have problems with some stages of capital investment. So, for example, in Russia, apparently, early stage capital is accessible, but exits are a lot more difficult. And in the mid stage, also some is missing. So this scoring provides a very clear picture in a very short space. So you don't need to have 20 pages article. You just need to score a few points, and then you understand where you're standing and you understand what's missing. Yeah, the market is probably the easiest to understand because it's related to how big the market for a tech company is if you're based in those geographies. So in the US, being the world's largest economy by far, the market is very large. So this criteria is very important because it decides a lot of other criteria. If you have a very big market, then you have a lot of opportunities. Even if you do something quite small in a very big market, it can be a nice business. So it attracts more entrepreneurs. And because you have access to this large market, investors are also excited, so it also attracts investments. China is also a very large market, and so is Japan in terms of GDP. But the difference with the US is that a lot of the companies based in Japan or in China in the startup space or tech space focus only on the local market. Whereas a company based in the US or in many other English-speaking countries or where English is quite strong would think very quickly at globalizing or at least accessing other large economies. So that's the market criteria. In the web and mobile space, the fact is that China is probably the most competitive market on the planet. And the reason is that the market is very large, there's a lot of people with good skills, there's a large influx of venture capital, and the market is just beginning in many sectors. So because of that, a lot of entrepreneurs try their chance, first at using proven models from other places and doing the local versions. So it's very, very competitive. Like you probably heard of Groupon, which is a pretty global company with a lot of copycats in many markets. China is probably the only market where you have thousands of copycats, not just tens or hundreds. So in the tech space, the few companies that have expanded in the web and mobile space are in the gaming space. So online games, mobile games, and there's a number of very successful Chinese companies in that space. And paradoxically, they actually have advantages compared to companies from the US or Europe or Japan, because they're used to a market where the average income of users is quite low. So they know how to monetize low-income users. It's very powerful to address any other emerging market. So you find Chinese games today in Indonesia, in the Middle East, in South America, in markets where Western games, which are tailored to people with higher income generally, don't work, or with better countries with better infrastructure, don't work so well. So those are some examples. Yes, so access to capital is important at different stages of the life of startup companies. So of course, when you start at the very beginning, maybe you don't need much money, you just build a little something yourself with a few friends. But then at some point you need a little bit of capital to get going until you reach a stage where you have enough revenue to be sustainable. And that's where you need seed capital. So it can be like private investors, angel investors, professional investors. So obviously the US has a lot of angel investors on early stage capital because the tech space has been active for many decades now. So successful people reinvest in the sector. In other countries, it's a lot more difficult to have seed and early stage capital. One country that has done interesting initiatives is Singapore, because the government is very supportive of early stage investment. But they have a problem in the following stages, which is growth capital or venture capital, where there's not so many firms. Venture capital tends to be interested in companies that can at least provide you the hope of a 10 times return on your money. So if you invest in a company, you want to get 10 times this amount. So that means that the company you invest in has to be able to grow quite a bit. And if they're not targeting a big enough market, it's unlikely that they're going to grow that much. Another opportunity in the capital aspect of market is to see what are the chances for a company to basically materialize the value they create. And that can be done in two ways. One is going public on the stock market with an IPO. Or second is to be acquired through an acquisition or merger. And this happens only in markets where you have big enough players to acquire companies and stock markets that are active enough. So that's a limitation for many, many smaller countries.
Promised you we would go international. In fact, we went all the way to Tokyo in Japan, a land which is truly innovative. We went for the Tokyo Game Show. Now this is just part one because there's so many things happening we can't fit it all into one episode. But what we could for this episode is still very, very exciting. Let's find out a bit more.
For the first time ever, Gadget Nation landed in Japan with great anticipation. Our first stop before heading to Tokyo Game Show was Shibuya, one of the trendiest cities in Tokyo. If there's one thing you need to know about Japan, expect to travel on foot at most times. With a systematic transportation system in place, most urban dwellers in Japan take public transportation, mainly the train. On the second day of our arrival, we set off to Chiba City to Makuhari Messe International Convention Center. Now look at the queue.
Konnichiwa, watashi wa Cherish desu. I believe you know where I am right now. I'm at Chiba City, approximately 1 hour away from Tokyo.
The annual Video Game Expo, which is held from September 20th to September 23rd at Makuhari Messe in Chiba, Japan, attracts thousands of media, business visitors, and the general public with exhibitions of upcoming game software and the latest hardware. Interestingly, amid all the long-time video game companies, GREE, a social gaming network, has an equally prominent presence at Tokyo Game Show. GREE currently has 7 studios worldwide, and most recently opened up the 3rd studio in Vancouver after San Francisco and London.
PlayStation has one of the biggest booths at Tokyo Game Show. And among those products that they are showcasing today include a personal 3D viewer. So what you do is put it on and you can have an immersive gameplay experience by connecting to PS3 compatible devices. So apart from that, we also see 2 new colors introduced to the market for PS Vita, including blue and red. And apart from that, we also see some exciting PS3 titles, including Injustice, Soul Sacrifice, and Metal Gear Rising.
This is Batman. Code Red. Everyone to these coordinates. Now. You push that button and 8 million die.
Batman is the face of the
Expose my identity and froze all.
Batman is a future hero. I'm in a nightmare. Catch me if you can.
This will be a blast!
Injustice, Gods Among Us. We chat with Adam Urbano of NetherRealm Studios about marrying DC superheroes with elements from Mortal Kombat.
So Adam, can you tell us a little bit about how did you guys come up with Injustice, the concept?
Sure. So it incorporates something we wanted to do forever, which is a bunch of gameplay things like environment interactions that we've never managed to do in Mortal Kombat. And then DC Comics, we formerly were Midway, and now that we're Warner Brothers, DC is owned by Warner, which gave us an opportunity to work with them, and given the chance to make a game with characters like Superman and Batman in it, we jumped at it. And so we've been working with them since for a couple years now.
How big is your team to work on the whole game itself?
Big. I think we're well over 100, maybe 130 people now. So 130 people working for years on this game.
And can you tell us a little bit about storyline, the plot, a little bit?
Yeah, so it was our story. It's our big thing. We really love what we did with story in Mortal Kombat. So we're working with Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray, who are two famous comic book writers, as well as the team at NetherRealm. And we've put together this pretty epic cinematic story that's much bigger than anything we've done before. So it's pretty expansive, and it takes quite a bit of time to get through.
Can you tell us a little bit about the interactive environment that you guys mentioned?
Yeah, so it's our big new fighting game feature. Not only do we have to have the characters fight against each other, but the characters can reach into the environment and use objects, and they use them in completely different ways. So Batman, because he's smaller, will bang a character's head against a car, while Superman, being a super strong character, grabs the car and slams it on people. So there's objects peppered throughout the entire environment different characters play with in different ways.
Similarly in the story, the character is still bearing their own identity in some way. Do you add on a little bit in this one?
Yeah, so we keep with this is NetherRealm's interpretation of DC characters. So we have to stay to the core roots, like Superman is still very much Superman. We've done a lot with their costumes and some of the things that they do that are very custom to our game. We want it to feel like a NetherRealm experience.
Do you add on extra superpower that is new to DC?
Interesting. Yes. Everything has to be approved by DC, but there have been a couple instances where we've taken what they have and sort of gone in a slightly new and different direction.
Currently, still in development, as I understand, so that's 24 characters, right?
There's at least 20. It shows 24. We can change that up or down as we need to.
So which one is your favorite character and which one is your, not least favorite?
Okay, so favorite character personally, a little personal story. So I dressed as Superman most of my childhood. I made my mother push a baby carriage and I'd rescue the child. So I love Superman, always have, always will. So he's my favorite. My least favorite isn't my least favorite, but I'm not good at Harley Quinn. So I need to practice with her because I haven't really mastered that character yet.
And then lastly, share a little bit about the graphics engine that you guys use.
Yeah, so we branched from Epic. We used to use Unreal 5 years ago, but we have completely rewritten the whole thing. We had to run this game at 60 frames per second. And so our renderer is a custom renderer. We have a whole new lighting engine. We have, like on the PlayStation, we have near 100% SPU utilization. So we have to get this level of graphics at 60 frames per second, we have an awesome tech team that's put together this engine.
Is there an Asian element in the game?
Yeah, there is actually.
What kind of Asian element? Is it Southeast Asia, Japan, Chinese?
I can't say yet.
Okay, okay, the expected date that we can expect in market.
Yes.
Southeast Asia especially.
I don't know if we know the Asian dates yet. I know we've released 2013, and we actually released the North American release date of April 2013.
Thank you so much for your time, Adam.
Thank you very much.
Coming up next week at the Gamers Station, esports, Evertrip, and more.
So relaxing on this. Unbelievable. Now there's more from Tokyo Game Show next week. Find out exactly what my producer managed to get when she was over there. I can't wait to see it because obviously I wasn't there. So I'm just as excited as you are. In the meantime, YouTube, look up Enjoy Awani for more of, well, all of Astro Awani shows, not just Gadget Nation. Facebook and Twitter, I'm on it, Adam Carruthers, or you can look up Gadget Nation as well. Till next time, I'm just going to lie here. Big thanks to Lynn's Furniture for putting me in a sofa.